Hey, what's up? This is Walter from Foals, and you're live in Limbo.
Hi, I'm Shannon from Live in Limbo. We're sitting with Walter, the bass player from Foals. How are you doing today?
I'm very good, actually. Yeah, I'm surprisingly rested for the end of a 7-week tour. I feel all right, quite fresh.
Yeah, so you guys are here in Toronto tonight, and then you have election day off.
Yes, I know.
See how if the world ends or not.
Yeah, it's quite terrifying, isn't it, really? I mean, it really is. By the time this comes out, presumably everyone will know.
Everyone will just be like, it'll be like a post-apocalyptic world, and people will be like laughing at our naivety about it.
I know. Yeah, it's going to be quite wild, actually, because we've spent so much time of this year, like over in the States. We haven't been up to Canada much. Mm-hmm. We did a few festivals up here, which was great. But we just feel like we've been wrapped up in it, and like everyone's involved because we were on tour back here in March, April time around the kind of the candidates were being picked, and it was just back then everyone's saying surely not, and now
I know.
And now here we are down the line. It's being decided tomorrow, and it just feels like
a whirlwind.
Yeah,
I know. I remember at the beginning,
and
everyone was like, "It's a joke. It's a joke," and I'm like, "Politics is never a joke," and it wasn't a joke, and now here we are. And like sitting in Canada, watching it all happen, like seeing like Brexit and then seeing everything in like America, and we're all just sitting here with our very liberal government, and we're like,
trying to keep quiet.
Yeah, we're just like, oh, the world is ending around us, but like it's great here in Canada. So if it ever Canada's great if you ever need somewhere else to live.
Thank you. Yeah. I think people are trying to look for other options already. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I know. So I guess you guys had a great year. You headlined Reading and Leeds Festival this year, which is absolutely insane. It's like one of the biggest festivals in the UK besides like Glastonbury, right?
Yeah.
So what was that like for you guys to like be handed that headlining spot?
Well, I mean, it was really, really special because Reading's just down the road from when we all come from anyway. So It was like the first kind of rock festival that a lot of us went to when we were kids. I first went in 1999, I think. I'm showing my age there. And so we would never have believed that we would, when we started the band, we never have thought it would get up to that level. And it was kind of an incredible moment. But it sort of shows the hard work of everyone around us as well, because for people to have vision to like, we've slowly built up towards that. The slots, we've done it a ton of times, and just building up from going like early in a tent to headlining a tent to early on the main stage, and then you just kind of do it. It just feels like a natural progression rather than being put out of. Because the worst thing I think would be to be put in a position like that when you're not quite ready for it.
Yeah, for sure. You guys,
and then to kind of let people down a little bit, or just be like, oh, maybe they should have waited. Which would have been bad. Also, the blow was softened by having the Disclosure Boys do it with us. So it was kind of great that we sort of flip-flop between Reading and Leeds. It made sense as well, because it's like a celebration of like, of our generation's kind of like, you've got a rock band on one side and, very much more electronic or dance music on the other side, but we've been coming up together. So it's it was cool. It was a good fit.
Yeah, it's like the duality of it all. You guys have it's like climbing a mountain, I think, with you guys. Like you pass, or like a ladder, like you get one step up and then you just keep going, and now you guys are like standing at the top, and it's like triumph,
Yeah, but I mean, it's great because it's like, that works thinking of it like that specifically to Reading, but then, it's humbling because we just come around, we try and go, we've toured all over the world this year, and from town to town, it's always different. Like we're still playing small clubs in some places, which we love. And, it's some places we go to are still kind of a labor of love. So it's not like we're one of those bands that goes everywhere and plays to thousands and thousands of people every day. It just doesn't work like that.
You're not like Coldplay or something like that.
No, we're not.
Actually, speaking about intimate venues, like tonight you're playing, it's not, I wouldn't say like an intimate venue, but I don't know, Rebel's like 4,000-ish. And then you go from playing like huge festivals like Coachella, and then you come and play smaller shows. Is there like a difference in the atmosphere between playing shows like that and shows like this?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is from a band who we started off playing in like people's bedrooms and kitchens and stuff. So it's like, it's kind of, like we're still surprised that any size crowds are there. It's great, and it's what's really nice is when you get the kind of club vibe where you're right up close to everybody and the crowd's right there. And we actually, it's a shame because there was definitely a time in the band a couple of years ago where we sort of realized, a bit sadly really, that like we were just too big to do small shows anymore. And it kind of becomes, I think for some bands, there's a responsibility to play in a bigger room so that more people can actually come to the show.
Yeah.
You can't keep underplaying and just going to like 200 clubs.
Yeah.
Because it's just not fair, because no one will get in and no one will get tickets.
It's not really like a smart, I don't know, business
No,
decision, I would say.
Yeah, but it's the realization where you go from scrambling to try and book shows and get people to put you on and play in people's houses, and then realizing that you actually physically can't do it anymore. It's kind of like, oh, right, we've got to that stage.
Yeah. I mean, as a fan of live music, I have been for like a long time, and I love concerts. And personally, I find the intimate shows are the shows where you kind of like you connect with a band on a different level than say you seeing them in like a stadium or something like that. Do you feel that way as an artist? Like, do you prefer an intimate show opposed to like a big stadium or something like that? Or is it just different?
It's different, and we like both. I know that sounds like the easy answer, but it's just like, there's something kind of just like awesome about walking out into a big festival and just like, having those moments where you're just like, wow, there's like, we never thought we'd be playing to this field full of people, even if everyone's not paying attention, just the fact that you realize that every note you're playing is being broadcast across this huge space. Yeah. It's kind of nuts. So yeah, those senses, those grand occasions are amazing, and to know that the band has got up there. But I like the intimate shows as well. I like it. And, Yannis gets to get in the crowd and gets kind of up in people's faces. And you kind of get to see people eye to eye, which is great. Yeah. So, both.
Yeah. Well, you guys, you took the easy way out. You guys are like, even way back before I heard of you guys, I saw like an article and it was like bands you have to see live, and you guys were like #1 on that list. Like,
oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but you guys are known for your live show, and I think you guys do a really great job of kind of bringing the whole crowd together, especially when Yannis goes out into the crowd and he's just like standing out in the middle of the crowd or crowd surfing, hitting people with a guitar, Yeah,
it's a bit of that,
But as a rock and roll band in our day and age, I look back at like when my parents were growing up and they were seeing the stadium bands were like the Rolling Stones and stuff like that. And we're kind of being ushered away from that like age of rock and roll being at the forefront. Being in a rock band, do you think like the saying like rock and roll is dead? Do you think that's true? Or do you think we're just living in like a different era?
Far from it. I think, I don't think that's true at all. I think that was proved when, there was a big push a few years ago and lots of EDM was coming out, and the festivals were starting to change towards that kind of sound, which was fair enough, because I think, the festivals have always been like, certain ones anyway, so like the playground of the young kind of thing, except for ones that are more welcoming to families and people who've been going to them for years. Glastonbury will always be an all ages sort of festival, I think, just as an example. But I know that particularly out here in the States, and I'm not sure so much here in Canada, whether a lot of new festivals feel like they need all the dance music, and they need kind of quick, like sugary acts that are like, gonna cause an effect instantly. Sometimes I think rock bands are more risky to because they're more susceptible to kind of have bad shows quite a lot of the time, because just by the nature of playing that kind of music, some people can underwhelm, no matter what size they are. Yeah, for sure. So I think, it's definitely riskier, and it's never going to die. You can just see the amount of bands that are around still at the moment. Yeah. It's like there's a kind of healthy pool. But I think what's going to start becoming missing is going to be those bigger acts that have had the time to get up to that size, like whether it's like Radiohead or Muse or Coldplay or Foo Fighters or whatever, like who's going to come up underneath them when they stop playing shows, because that's why we've seen so much heritage stuff, as people call it, coming back, because there's a market for it, because someone's got to fill these big spots, rock slots.
I read an article once that kind of said that nostalgia was like ruining America, and in a way I kind of agree. Like you go to a festival and you have like the same acts or playing the same headlining spots over and over and over again. It's almost like not giving a chance to the other artists who really. But nostalgia gets money, and like you go to the box office and they're playing Spider-Man 7,
exactly.
But I know I kind of agree in the way, but I look at like the acts that define our generation, and I think it's different than when it was like my parents' generation was defined by acts like AC/DC and stuff like that, and ours is more defined by like the Taylor Swifts and Justin Biebers.
I think that's fair enough to say.
But and kind of being at it from a perspective of someone like, I love rock and roll music. I listen to my dad's old records. I listen to like your kind of music, you know? And then I have friends who on the other end of the spectrum listen to that EDM stuff. And I agree what you say, like it brings money into festivals, you know, it opposed to like having, I don't know, Muse headline, you know, they get like dubs, or I don't know, or something like that, or Disclosure, I guess.
Yeah, right. I think there's the sort of, it's a safer bet sometimes because it's risky. You know, this is big business and a lot of money, you know, goes into these festivals particularly. And it's just like, you know, you look at Coachella with getting LCD Sound System back, you know, the band who had split up and they came back. And why not? Because actually, you know, they were incredible. So it's like there's a certain amount where it's just like, you know, if they can fill the slot and they're up for doing it, then, and it's a safe bet, you know, and people are going to really enjoy it, then great. So it's difficult you can't be too scathing of it, can you? Because you know you need to get people in through the gates, and then I guess you're hoping by doing that people will then be open-minded enough
and go and see like the rock and roll bands,
and go and see who's on at 2 o'clock at one of the smaller stages and things.
Yeah, but I was at. Have you ever heard Firefly Festival?
Yes. Yeah, we've never been, but I heard it was great.
It's fantastic. I drove 8 hours in my like Honda Civic, and we made it all the way there. But for me, it was kind of cool because the headlining acts were Kings of Leon, Florence and the Machine, Mumford & Sons.
Yeah,
you know, which are kind of like, they're not, I mean, they had Disclosure and M83 and like those ones, but I thought like the biggest one was Mumford, which was crazy for me because this is like an indie band, you know? So yeah, I agree. It's not dead. I don't think rock and roll can ever be dead. There's always bands who love rock and roll, and there's always going to be people who love rock and roll to keep it alive.
Yeah, and there's always those old records. They're not going to go anywhere.
No,
so
exactly.
If there really stops being rock and roll bands, then there's plenty of albums that are worth mining.
We'll keep it alive through through the records. So speaking about music, I'm always curious about who my favorite artists are listening to. Who are you listening to right now?
Right now, speaking of heritage stuff, right now, well, because Bob Dylan just won the Nobel Prize, I've been kind of going back and digging out like Bob Dylan records that I'd never really listened to.
Yeah.
And just listening to what the other boys hand on to me, really. I'm quite bad at finding new music, so I kind of tend to have several sort of comfort records that I go back to.
Everybody
I listen to a lot of, you know, kind of old folky stuff like John Martin, Van Morrison, and people like that. Yeah, especially on tour as well. Like I find like playing shows all the time, like I'm not very good at kind of actively searching and listening to lots of music. So I actually tend to listen to much less when I'm playing because you're just, you know, you're playing every day. There's music around you all the time. So it's it's quite hard to. Sometimes just a bit of quiet. It's quite nice. I know. You know?
Yeah, you're
I'll
just
listen to some records when I go home.
You're just like, you're like sitting on stage all the time and then you get into your dressing room and you're like, you hear that?
Yeah, quiet.
Silence.
Lovely, yeah. Like it is now. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Cut to a few hours time and it really won't be.
Yeah. Well, one of my suggestions, if you're looking for ways to look for new music, I don't know if you like Spotify or anything like that. They have like Discover playlists, and that's honestly where I find 90% of my music. It's always like they cater it to you. So I don't know if you're interested in anything like that, but Spotify is definitely, I think, one of the best tools to finding new music.
Yeah, I don't have an account set with them either. I don't have an iTunes account either. Yeah, so yeah.
Do you have a cassette player that you carry around with you?
Yeah, my little it's a dual cassette player. Actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a high-tech one. Yeah.
I love it. I remember when I was like young and I was listening to Green Day on my cassette player. And I'd like sit by the window and like pretend I was in a music video.
Perfect. Yeah, that'll never die either. That's great.
No, and records are back now. Like they're in. Everyone has a record player, which is cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, vinyl just sounds incredible. It always has, and people never forget that. And I think as you know, as sort of the mid-size like physical CD albums and things start to die out, as it has been, and you know, and it's been happening, and there's a lot more streaming, then you're just going to get the exact opposite. So on the other side, it's going to be like nice box sets and people doing like limited releases and special physical things, because people will always want to hold something like that and you know, have an actual record. So it's good to see that vinyl sales are sort of boosted.
Yeah, I mean, and as someone, I do use Spotify as my means for music. It's easy, it's like all on my phone. But if there's an album that I'm like every Ben Howard album ever, I have on like CD, because I think there's something about having your favorite artist's album that is more, I don't know, tangible, I guess, to actually hold it. I don't know. It's weird, but I totally get where you're coming from. So you guys are kind of wrapping up your tour now. You're heading into, I guess, Japan, and then the end of the month, and then you're done, right?
Yes, we're not actually going to Japan.
Oh,
sadly.
you're not?
We wanted to go and play some shows there, but we've got 2 festivals, one in Singapore, one in Hong Kong.
Okay,
and then we're going to go home.
Okay.
But we're actually back after Chicago, so Election Day, and then our last show is the day after that in Chicago, and then we go home for a couple of weeks.
So you're heading into the eye of the storm, like right after the election.
Yeah, I know.
There's no escaping it there.
Yeah, I know. But then the next day we're out, so we'll see what happens.
So there's nothing. You guys don't really have anything lined up for the new year.
No, we don't. We need to take some time because we've been away a lot, and everyone needs to kind of see their friends and family. I think a bit. So we're going to lay low over Christmas and then see what happens next year. We've got nothing new written either, so I think at some point, the boys are going to put their heads together, and there's going to be some more writing to be done. But it's really important. It's so easy as we're learning, because touring is our kind of bread and butter as well. Because, we don't sell any records. So, we've got to stay on the road and tour a lot. But it's very easy just to roll into the next gig and then be offered more and more stuff, which is great. And it's good to know that we could be busy. But at some point you have to just say, that's it. We're going to go back for a bit. So.
I guess it probably does get tiring. Are you ever worried that you guys are kind of wearing yourselves out?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And also, I think you think that sometimes it's there's definitely a sweet spot in touring where you get into a rhythm of it, and it's good to do big chunks.
Yeah.
And we've always toured like that, but then you don't want the shows to start suffering. It's like this run out here. It's like if we were to do another week, I think the shows would start suffering for it. And
for sure.
That's not fair for audiences to expect them to come out and watch a half-assed.
Yeah, you want to give 100%.
Tired band, so you want to, definitely.
All right, so we look forward to anything new that you guys are bringing out, whether it be a new record, new tour, or anything. And I'm sure everyone is keeping their heads up for it. But thank you so much for sitting down with us today, and good luck with your show tonight. No problem. All right.
Awesome. Thank you.